We're going to get started because I want to get you guys out of here in time. There are still people coming in, but we're going to just kind of let them come on in. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Rachel Crisso. I run the LSA International Internship Program, which, though housed in LSA, is for all units, students from all units. I'm so happy to see this many people here. Who's already done an internship in the past, anywhere? Yeah, lots of hands. Anybody done an internship abroad yet? A few people, great. Well, I don't need to tell you, I don't think, the importance of having something like an internship under your belt. Now people are getting multiple internships. It's a great thing, it's practical experience, it's what employers are looking for. You know, pretty much standard you have to have an internship now, correct? Well, what better way to make you stand out from other people than having an international internship? What does that show employers? It shows them that you have stepped out of your comfort zone, not necessarily gone to do study abroad, which is fantastic, taking nothing away from study abroad, it's great. But when you work abroad, you might be living alone, you might be the only person from Michigan there, you might be in the middle of nowhere. And suddenly you have to not only function in a day-to-day way, living, feeding yourself, but you also have to interact with people in a work environment, in a foreign culture. And that is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And it's something that future employers are very impressed by, that you've managed to integrate into another culture. So I hope you'll all very strongly think about trying to get an international experience this coming summer. And it's great that you're here so early and that you're thinking about it now, because now's the time. So I'd like to introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about my program, and then we're going to hear about all the other programs. So, in order, Taylor Madrowski is going to talk to us about France later. Chris Bell was in Spain. He's going to talk about that. Bill Nolting runs the International Center over in the Students' Union. Alison Climes was in Spain, and she's also going to talk about something called the MIISP program, which you'll learn more about. Carly Federhofer is a teacher of German in Romance languages, and he's going to tell you about internships in Germany. And then Angelica is a student, and also Dan, both of them were in Germany last summer, and they're going to tell you about their experiences. Liz Muller from Ross Global Initiatives is going to tell you about their programs, and then two of her students are going to tell you about their particular experiences in Hong Kong and Australia. So just to start with the LSA International Internship Program, there are probably two questions that you have, I'm going to guess. One is, do I need to speak a foreign language to go and work abroad? And the answer to that is no. If you do speak a foreign language, and it happens to be French or Spanish for my program, and then later on German, then you can have a fully integrated international internship using your language. Those are possibilities. But we go to a lot of countries where you do not need to speak a foreign language. I'm just going to list off the countries where we do have internships. Well, France and Spain, as I mentioned. We also have internships in the UK. Kai is here tonight. Where are you, Kai? Wave. He's way in the back there. Kai Norton was in London this past summer in a brand new internship position and had a really fantastic summer. Learned an awful lot, got to live in London, which was great, but also has now a very solid international internship experience under his belt. And look, he's back for more. He wants to go somewhere else. So we have internships in Portugal, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, the Galapagos, India, and Turkey. I have a lot of students who have been to Turkey in the past. And India is going to be our second year there this year. What kind of jobs can you do? You can run the whole gamut. You can be working in a bank, you can be working in finance, you can be working in marketing, or you can be helping turtles get out of the water in the Galapagos Islands. You could be helping in an orphanage in Peru. There's really a whole range of things you can do in this program. The other question you're going to have is, money? How am I going to pay for this? If you are a recipient of financial aid in the School of LSA, we have quite substantial scholarships. Also your departments, you should always reach out to your departments. They have funding for things like this. One of the pages on our website, Treats, it has a whole list of places you can apply for funds, and I know that Ross also has funds for Ross students. So on the green sheet, just kind of feel the way the evening is going to go, and we want you to kind of keep this and take it home with you, because it has all the websites where you can find out much more information and find out about the application processes, and it also has the application deadlines so that you can start thinking about things and getting things in order. Okay, and we're going to save all our questions till the end. Everybody's going to speak for about 5 minutes, and then we'll have an open Q&A at the end. So I'm going to begin with Taylor, who's going to tell me about her summer in France.
Hello. Hi everybody, my name is Taylor. I'm a senior in LSA, and I'm a French and Comm double major. So this summer I was in Tours, France, which is about an hour outside of Paris, and I worked at an event planning firm. I was with 2 other Michigan girls. We lived together downtown in Tours. We worked 9 to 5 every Monday through Friday, and every weekend we traveled. So I went to Istanbul, to the UK, and other places in France. Your supervisor is most likely going to be very flexible. They're like, oh, you know, this is your time to travel and learn, so they'll be really flexible letting you guys travel. So my internship was actually paid. I know mine was one of the only ones that was paid. So our stipend paid for all of my housing, which is great, but if your internship is not paid, there are plenty of scholarships. I have a lot of friends who had unpaid jobs, but they ended up getting a lot of funding through LSA or through their, whatever college they were in. And I think just in general, you should note that this is a lot cheaper than studying abroad. If you're thinking of, even going for the summer or for the semester, I'm getting credit for fall semester, which means that I didn't have to pay summer tuition, so that's something to think about if you're out of state like me. You don't want to have to pay extra tuition in the summer when you can really just get credit for the fall. So that was really convenient as well. And let's see. So I really think doing an internship is different than studying abroad because you're pretty much on your own, like Rachel said. You're not going to have, you might have somebody who's living with you in the country, or you might have, a supervisor, but you're not going to have a Michigan professor with you, telling you this is what you're doing today, this is, what our agenda is. It's really your chance to grow and be independent and really challenge yourself and branch out and try new things. So I think that for me, honestly, it had a huge impact on my life. I don't think that I would have grown the summer before I graduate if I wouldn't have, been abroad like this. It was kind of uncomfortable sometimes to be in a new place, knowing the language, but not knowing the culture. So I think it was stressful at times, but in a good way. It was the best summer I think I've had in college. And for me, I'm a comm major, so it was a good way to implement both my French major and my communications degree, so that was really great to have that opportunity. And like Rachel said, you don't have to know a language. For me, it worked out because I got to use my French at my job, but if you still want to go abroad, you should definitely, even if you don't speak a language, I would encourage you to go to a country that has a different language. It's really, a good chance to learn and branch out. And so professionally, I was going to go into PR before this, but I realized that I love French. It inspired me to continue with my French studies. I'll be going to grad school for French. But in general, I really would recommend it. Even if you're on the fence about it, I think you should push yourself. It was the best summer I've ever had in college, and I really think, it was great. So I encourage you all to apply and really consider this.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Bell, and I am a senior now. I'm majoring in political science, international studies, and Spanish. This summer I was in Madrid, Spain, working with the United Nations Center for Refugees. It was an unpaid internship, so I planned very far ahead. I became an RA the year before, and I planned on using all the money I saved on housing to help fund my internship abroad. And then also I applied through the International Studies, have funding for internship, and I received a fund to help pay for this internship through them, which was nice. And also I was a student of MIISP, which they will talk later about. And I got funding through that, and they help you articulate your funding articles to be able to stick out from the other applicants and receive funding. So that was very helpful as well. Let's see. So as I said, I worked with the United Nations Center for Refugees, and I found this program this internship through a program called Cultural Vistas. And this, as someone else will later talk about this, they actually, once you get accepted into the program, they will place you with an internship. So you don't have to actually find the internship yourself. You're active in the process, but they will actually do the contacting of the company for you. So that made life a lot easier. In my internship, I was in charge of creating reports of the current events, which if any of you followed this summer, there were a lot of current world events that created problems for refugees. Also, I would then translate articles in major projects. And one time I got to revise a UN speech, so I really felt like the power right there. Other than that, finding housing in Madrid was actually very cheap. It was cheaper than the rent I paid to live in Ann Arbor, and I was right in downtown Madrid. So that was a lot of fun. It was the best experience of my life, just being able to go walk out of my apartment and be right in Gran Via, right in the heart of Madrid. I meant to live with other students from Michigan. However, I signed up for the wrong apartment. So when I got there, surprise, you're only living with Spanish people. It turned out that this actually, I don't regret doing this at all, because I made a good friend doing that. I actually went home to Sevilla with one of my roommates, and that was a lot of fun, meeting his parents and everything. And then also, one of my main reasons for doing it was improving my Spanish. And so, of course, if you're only working and living in Spanish, speaking Spanish, you drastically improve your speaking ability, which I don't know, probably for most of you from the classes at U of M, you don't really develop your speech as well as writing and reading. And then for my future, the United Nations Center for Refugees really it's something I'm very interested in as I want to go into foreign service. So it was right up my alley. It was a great, not only for your resume, but a great experience of living abroad to see if it's something that works for you, which for me, I loved it, and it was one of the best summers of my life. So you should all do it.
Hello everyone, it is great to see such a fantastic turnout for this event. I'm Bill Nolting from the International Center. The International Center is the oldest of the international units at the university. It's our 76th year. I haven't been there quite that long myself, but certainly over the many years of our assisting students going abroad as well as coming to Michigan, we've worked with thousands and thousands of students. Certainly in the past decade, we've had several thousand students in that decade alone do internships abroad, study abroad, or do postgraduate opportunities such as the Peace Corps, which is part of our office. But before I go on a little bit, I hope you all picked up the flyer called International Career Pathways. This event is the second in that series, and there are a lot of upcoming events that will certainly be of interest. So certainly the internships with the U.S. Department of State is on September 30th. The application deadline for summer internships with the State Department is October 17th. So that shows you how incredibly early some of these deadlines are for summer programs. That particular program will be given by U of M's diplomat in residence, and she can personally assist you in applying for those internships and giving you the best advice. Another surely relevant session is funding for internships and research abroad on October 1st. Many units around this university give funding for students to do internships, even if they're not doing it for credit. Those funds tend to be separate from the study abroad type of scholarships. So that session you will definitely want to go to. And these kind of culminate in the International Opportunities Fair on October 23rd, when there will be 50 to 60 organizations that offer internships and other ways to go abroad for working or volunteering. Then there are a series of panels that focus on the longer-term career prospects. So environmental careers with a global focus, international careers for engineering students, careers in global health, a very popular session, careers in information. Those are some of the career-oriented sessions in this series. So I hope you'll come to those. I did want to say a little bit about one program that my office does run itself, and that's the Michigan International Internship and Service Program. The deadline for that is September 28th, and there will be an information session about the program tomorrow at 2 o'clock. It's that yellow flyer as you came in, and it says you need help identifying opportunities and funding sources. If you want to meet fellow U of M students who are interested in going abroad, are you interested in creating an M-portfolio, an e-portfolio about your experience? So it's basically an intensive advising program. We don't actually offer the placements, but we work with all of the programs here on campus, as well as external programs such as the State Department, to help the students in the ICP program find the best fit for each student. It's basically a three-phase program. The phase one is about 6 or 8 workshops on campus that basically start with the logistics of finding an international internship, finding funding for it, and then later on there are additional workshops on things like challenges in the international workplace and succeeding as an intern, respectfully entering and exiting the host community, and so forth. And these students here participated in the program. When the students go abroad in the summer, they go individually, but they do blog, and all the students on the program can see each other's blogs, so there's that kind of sharing. And then upon return, there's the possibility to create an M-portfolio. And as I mentioned, the deadline is September 28th. We started that early because of all of these internship programs that have such early deadlines, like October 17th for the State Department, or you may have heard of GIU, which is the Global Intercultural Experience for Undergraduates. Those are short-term faculty-led programs, November 5th for summer. So many of the best opportunities have deadlines in the next month or two, way ahead of the summer, and that's why we start this program so early. With that, I'll introduce Allison Climes, who participated in our program, 2 or 3 years ago, and she's helped run it. This will be your second year.
Hi, so my name is Allison Climes. I'm a senior studying International Studies in Spanish. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the MIISP program. I participated in my freshman year, and now I help co-facilitate it, so that's exciting. So when I did it, I ended up going to Nicaragua for a month for just a volunteer program. But I just want to talk about how it's really helpful, especially I think as a freshman doing it. You get a lot of support in how to find an international internship in all of your cases, and like Chris said, how to help find funding. And it's a really great resource just to have some more support in going abroad, especially when you're doing it more independently rather than like a study abroad with a program. And it also like helps you work together with other students who have the same interests as you. So that's unique about the program also. And then about the M-portfolio, that's what you do when you come back, or it's optional, I guess. But it's really, I found it really beneficial to be able to like look back on my experience and really come up with like a way to articulate the lessons I took from it, and also just what I got out of it, and be able to tell people about it rather than just saying, oh, it was awesome. So that was really beneficial. And doing that program and going to Nicaragua led me to go abroad again after my sophomore year, and I actually did the same internship that Chris did in Spain. So that kind of really catapulted my interest in going abroad, and I really think it's a really great way to have some support when you're trying to figure it all out, because it can be kind of confusing. And I think that's all I really have to say about it. So we have an informational session tomorrow from 2 to 3:30. So if you're interested, you should come learn a little bit more about it. And yeah.
Hello, my name is Kali Federhofer, and I haven't done an internship yet. So I teach in the German department, and I'm also an advisor for anybody who's minoring in German. And I see, of course, a lot of students also who study abroad. And some of you may think, oh, should I study abroad or should I do an internship abroad? What are the pros and cons? And what I see among those students who do an internship abroad is that they improve their German. And the reason is, if you study abroad, you will have a lot of friends who do the same, and you may take language classes, let's say in Spanish or in French then while you're abroad. But as soon as you go out and you go to the bars, you switch to English because you have a funny joke. But there, or maybe a lame joke. But there, if you work abroad, you have to speak this language for 7-8 hours a day, and I think you get far more independent if you work abroad. You have to figure out a lot of things on your own. There isn't a resident director who would help you. So these are huge advantages of doing an internship abroad. Now I speak here on behalf of an organization which is called Cultural Vistas, and they have summer programs. I mean, you talked about the programs. So for Germany, you would go normally between late May and mid-August, and the two students here who had gone through these summer programs, and I think applied by the same times. For the German program, there is actually a language prerequisite, and that is that you ideally have completed German 232, fourth semester German, before you go. So there will be a little bit of a question about it, and are your German skills proficient enough to do an internship? And by the time that you apply, Cultural Vistas has no internships for you, but they accept you in the program, and then in the course of the winter term, they are looking for an internship along your background, your professional background. Some of you may have already done some work here in the US, or along your academic background. So Cultural Vistas doesn't say, oh, we need to have a business student. Both of these students here are LS&A students in natural science, social sciences. So Cultural Vistas finds internships for engineers, business school students, but also those students who are single language students. And some of the internships get paid, some of them are unpaid. And outside you will see, for German at least, a list of representative internships. We had last year about 25 applicants and 25 students got accepted. So as long as you're in fine academic standing, as long as your German background is sufficient, you will be placed and accepted into the program, and then Cultural Vistas finds an internship for you. Of course, we are not flawless, and that means the deadline here is wrong. So those, and I'm sure it's not the majority maybe of you who want to apply to Cultural Vistas, the deadline is actually the 1st of December, not the 15th of December. And what you would have to submit is a resume written in German, and some of you may think, oh gosh, I don't even have a proper English resume. So the German department helps you compose this resume. And then, as we all talk about, and you talk about funding, there are funding opportunities to our department, for instance, but also various ones that only come in February, March, when you know what your internship is going to be. And Cultural Vistas also has an orientation session in Germany for all these students who then disperse into different areas of Germany.
Hi, I'm Angelica Curthin, and I'm a sophomore in the LSA program. And I'm a German and a point major. And I spent the summer in Berlin, Germany, working in the Leibniz Institute water ecology and inland fisheries research laboratory. And so I did get the internship through Cultural Vistas, and I found out about it through the German department. And they really pretty much helped me along the way with every single step, and I ended up getting funded by them. I worked on a project that was relevant to my major and my interests, and I worked on how the flow reduction of rivers affects macroinvertebrate colonization, and it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed myself doing the work there, which was a benefit. But I also had a lot of free time, because since you're only working 8 hours a day, you do have a lot of time on either end. And you do have the weekends. And travel in Germany in the summer is really inexpensive, and a lot of the airlines and the trains have special deals for students. So you can travel for about 50 euros to anywhere around Europe for 2 days. And that was something I definitely took advantage of, and it was really fun. I was totally immersed in the language since I did not have English roommates or American roommates. I lived with Germans in a completely German apartment with a German landlady, and that was also really fun and really helpful, since there's some words you feel like that you don't learn in class, like how do you tile scrubber, how do you say that in German? And those are things that I learned. Additionally, it was a lot less expensive than I thought, since the cost of food in Germany is really, really cheap. I think that this was probably one of the most wonderful experiences so far that I've had in college. I made a ton of friends, both international and from U of M, since there is that Cultural Vistas orientation. And so if you do get sick of Germany, or if at least you get sick of speaking German, you can always meet up with them and just go out and like watch a soccer game. And I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about insects and insect larvae. And I think it was just an invaluable experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan. I know it gives a longer version of my name, so I don't need you all to know that. So I'm Dan, I'm a history and poli-sci major, minoring in German, and so I kind of heard about the cultural vistas in exactly the same way that Angelica did through the German department. So I was kind of at this point last year around the same time, and I was thinking I want to do some sort of internship, but because of my major in very much a humanities field, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get an internship or somewhere that I would be able to do research. But I was able to talk to not only Kali, but also in the German department we have Peggy Wunderwald Jensen, who really kind of like is our Cultural Vistas representative in the German department. And she was able to say that, you know, we can find an internship, and Cultural Vistas was really, really very useful in finding the internship for me. And so I fulfilled all the requirements, I got into the program, and then came sort of like the issue of like whenever you have another sort of institution finding these internships for you, there's a certain amount of weight that sometimes comes with it. For natural sciences and business fields, that weight is pretty much non-existent because people want to hire you. Whereas in the humanities, it's a little bit more difficult. So what happened with me is that I got my first internship offer at one of the, actually was one of the leading museums in Germany, which is the Deutsches Auswandererhaus, the German Immigration Center in Bremerhaven, which is in the north. It's about 45 minutes north of Bremen, in case you know where that is. And so I got that, and that was about in the beginning of April, but that only lasted for about, I think about 6 weeks. And so that was within the time period that all of the scholarships that I had applied to were kind of like they required it to be for 8 weeks. And so I was looking to get another internship, and so I was asking Cultural Vistas, is there another place that will be hiring me at least for the entire summer or for the other 6 weeks, otherwise I have to make other plans. And so it ended up being that we got the second internship at this really small museum in Berlin. It's called the Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg Museum. It's literally 5 stories. It's probably the size of an apartment building, and I had never heard of it in my life. So I was really surprised when I got both of these museums. One was a really prominent one in a small town, probably the size of Ann Arbor. The other one was in the biggest city in Germany, and it was a really small museum. So it really offered me 2 very different paths. And I was able to get it all funded because I had asked my dad, would he be able to pay some of this? And he was like, no. So what ended up happening is I applied through the LSA internship program, the International Institute. There's also the Wisner Center for Eurasian and European Studies. I might have pronounced that wrong, but WCEE, they also have, they offer funding as well, and also through the German department, of course. And so I get to my different internships, and they were very different experiences because you would never imagine it, but history museums are a little bit like businesses, and you could actually compare and contrast them a lot with small businesses and large businesses, which is what I got to be able to do. So at the Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg Museum, I was just one of the interns at this really small museum. There are literally only 4 employees, and the rest of the people are volunteers there. What was really interesting was I had so many different things that I had to do. I had like main sort of duties that I had to fulfill. So my main project was to to create suggestions and find an organization scheme for an entire first floor exhibit of a museum. And what was really interesting was that I got to photograph all of the different Schubladen or drawers. So museums in Germany really like to make things interactive by making you open drawers. I'm not particularly sure why, no one really knows. But all of the different exhibits we were able to look at. And it was really fun being able to compile all this information and then present it to the curators and say, maybe we could change it so that it's more accessible for people like internationals, foreigners who would be coming through the museum, who wouldn't know so much of the context of Kreuzberg history, or to know about gentrification, or many of these other themes. Actually, one of my favorite moments that I had was having an argument with one of the people who worked there. And it's really interesting because I never thought I could be confident at public speaking. So I was talking, and especially in my third language, German, second being French. And it was very interesting having this argument and then actually managing to convince people that maybe they could change their museum. So that was really fun. And then there was also, like, being in Berlin, I had a lot of weekends available, and I was just able to visit all of these different sites, and it was just awesome because I could go literally museum hopping every weekend, which probably doesn't sound fun to most of you, but for me it was absolutely great. But going to my second internship, which was at more of a bigger place, the Deutsches Auswandererhaus, it was the top museum, it was voted the best European museum in Europe in 2007. And it was actually, it's this really technologically advanced museum where you have iCards that allow you access to going into places. It's kind of like being in a building like Ross constantly, but with a lot more artifacts and a lot more history oriented. What I got to do there was I got to research emigration in the 19th century, as well as catalog items, as well as give tours, which was really interesting. Although it wasn't in German, it was in English, but it was really fun. So my experiences there were a little bit different because I was in a different building than the actual museum itself. And so it seemed a lot more different because it was a privately owned museum. So public museums tend to have a lot more funding constraints, whereas private museums, they can literally shell out money. That's kind of one of the things. And it was a little bit more of a corporate structure, so for people who are interested in that sort of environment, I would definitely recommend that. For me, I found out that I tend not to like it because it's a little bit, there isn't as much as you can contribute in terms of ideas. So I find it to be a little bit different, but it works differently for all people. So what I really gained out of this was language skills. My German improved so that I could have actual conversations with people in the streets. I could actually hand out flyers to people in German, which is really interesting. I also got so many experiences, both through traveling as well as through working, and understanding more about what I actually wanted to do. So I found out that I actually don't want to go into museum studies. I actually do want to go to grad school and study history for several years and then go into academia because that's a much more fulfilling experience. Or go into small businesses. I'm still not entirely sure. But I also got to work on my communication and research skills. So if you're looking for an internship, I would definitely suggest, don't rule out every possibility. Don't rule out all of the ones that seem like they would be small little businesses because those could actually be the most fun places you get to work at. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Muller, and I work here at the Ross School as the Director of Global Initiatives. And I'm going to share a little bit about our Global Intern Program with you tonight. It's nice to see some familiar faces out there, you guys. And I saw a few students I was in India with last month. Before I share about that program, though, I want to mention a couple of things. So there's a great resource. We're talking about some specific programs that exist here at the UM by which you can do an international internship, but a lot of students also work and look to source their own international internship, so that's also a very viable option, and there are funding sources available to help you fund your own experience. So a great resource that the University of Michigan has a subscription to here is called My World Abroad. And I know we use the M-Card reader outside, so we can forward you the link to that resource afterward. It's a large website that has a lot of good resources to help focus in your search for an international internship. So that's My World Abroad. Just don't forget that, and we'll send you the link. Okay, so a little bit more about the Ross Global Intern Program. So we have 4 locations where we place interns. Sydney, Auckland, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia, Hong Kong, and then Singapore. Last year, we sent 55 interns to Sydney and Hong Kong, and this year we're opening up 2 more locations. So our program is a little bit different than some of the programs that have been talked about this evening. Ours is an 8-week program that starts with a 2-week course that comes with 3 Ross elective credits. It's a strategy course that will give you an introduction to the business environment and the corporate strategy environment in the given region where you'll be doing your internship. So 2-week course followed by a 6-week internship placement in one of those 4 locations. Our placements are focused obviously in business, and just a really important note for all of you, our programs are open to Ross and non-Ross students, so students from all Ann Arbor schools and colleges can apply to the Global Intern Program, and we welcome that. We love all the diversity and the cross-disciplinary sharing that happens on our program. It's great too because when you're in the internship placement, you actually are with a cohort of Ross students. It doesn't mean that you're not going to meet a lot of people locally and you're going to be working in your internship placement pretty individually. We have a couple of placements where there may be one other Ross intern with you, but in general, those days that you'll be spending on site will be with your particular team and your particular firm. So there are lots of sample placements. We do focus on pretty high-level placements in these areas. You'll hear from Claudia and Matt. Claudia was with Nielsen and Matt was at Morningstar. We've had placements at Walmart, Target, JP Morgan, and a lot of other firms. So what we do in terms of the process, so how it works, December 1st is actually our application deadline. That's the primary application process. And your written application is reviewed and vetted. You'll submit a resume along with a lot of other materials. And then you're initially accepted, conditionally accepted into the program, and then we go through an interview process. So you have to pass kind of 2 rounds to move forward to finally being placed in the internship program itself. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that this is the right fit for you, and that we're the right fit for you, and that you're the right fit for the program itself, that it really is meant to be. So one of the important things is that just like cultural vistas, the placements aren't actually known when you accept into the program. So we work very hard to help match your interest with the firm. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're submitting a lot of candidates forward for internships. The companies obviously have the final say over who they want to make an offer to. And so we guarantee placement in an internship, and it's very much a shared collaborative process. We want to make sure that all of our participants are very satisfied with the firms where they're placed and vice versa, that the firms are satisfied with the students. So I think that's most of what I want to say. I really want Claudia and Matt to speak to their experiences. We will have an information session in much more detail about the process, the internship program itself, coming up in early November, so keep your eyes out for that. In terms of funding, financial aid is available. There's a course attached to this program, so you can talk to your financial aid officer about that. And we have a scholarship program available through the Ross School of Business for students to do such global experiences like this Global Intern Program. And with that, I'll hand it over to Claudia, who's going to talk about her experience in Sydney.
Hi guys, I'm Claudia Len, and I interned at Nielsen in Sydney, Australia. So at Nielsen, which is a global measurement and information company, I worked directly with my supervisor who was in charge of getting new clients for Nielsen. So I assisted him in that process by conducting market research and compiling a list of clients that he should target, and I would accompany him to client meetings, and I gained a lot of useful professional experience through that. I went with 30 other University of Michigan students, and we stayed in a extended stay hotel apartment sort of residence, and it was a really great experience. We all got really close there. And Sydney is a great place, and everyone is so nice there. It was literally one of the best experiences I've ever had. And so how I funded the trip, I applied for the scholarship provided through Ross Global Initiatives, and that covered for most of my costs. And at Nielsen also, I got to network with a lot of great people, and I'm still in contact with my boss and my coworkers, and that's a really nice thing to have in your networking back, I guess. And so I had a really great experience, and we also got to travel to a lot of places. I traveled up to Cairns, where I visited the Great Barrier Reef and got to snorkel. We went to the Hunter Wine Valley, where we also got to, I took selfies with kangaroos, I met koalas. It was a really great time, and the Nielsen experience was really rewarding because it also opened a new door for me, and I realized that I was very interested in brand management, which is what I will now be pursuing this summer. And I realized it's because at Nielsen we dealt with a lot of media agencies, and I saw how they use the data to create their marketing strategies. And now I realize that that's what I'm really interested in, and that is what I am now going to be pursuing. So, over to Matt.
Good evening, guys. I'm Matt Recker. I'm a junior BBA, also with a minor in computer science, and I was very fortunate to be able to spend this past summer in Hong Kong. It was a phenomenal city, and it really wasn't on my radar when I was looking for international internships, but it ended up working out very well. So I worked for Morningstar in their investment management division. I also had 2 other interns there from the University of Michigan in equity research and fund research. And I really love the company and my division as well. A little bit about what I did. It wasn't so much investment management. The title's a little bit deceiving. We don't really manage anything. But it's investment consulting, more for institutional clients. So I worked on a couple different projects, such as capital markets modeling, to fund research on specific projects that were directed by our clients, to working on a pension plan for a whole Southeast Asian country, which was really cool to sort of see that I was making that kind of impact. And I really enjoyed the division that I was working in. So I was a little bit worried at first going in, because I don't speak any Cantonese, which is the language they speak there, that I would have trouble sort of fitting in with my coworkers, but it ended up working out great. My department director was phenomenal. We ended up going out on weekends to bars, and to we went hiking a few times, and we just developed a really good connection. And I thought that they really just brought all of us onto the team. And I know that the other 2 interns that worked at the company had a similar experience, being brought onto the team like that. And all the interns, for the most part, in Hong Kong felt like they were very included in the company, despite the seemingly obvious language barrier. Even though it is a very westernized country or city, everybody speaks English there. So a little bit more about the city itself. It was absolutely incredible. It's a very metropolitan city. Imagine New York on top of Hawaii. It was super tropical. We went to the beaches on weekends, went on boat cruises, went shrimp fishing. It was just a phenomenal experience, but at the same time you had that big city life, which I really enjoyed. It's a city of about 7 million people, very vertical, skyscrapers everywhere. I definitely confirm that I do like living in the cities, and I plan to next summer as well. So a little bit more on why I chose to do an international internship. I was pretty set on it, at least within the past year or 2, of getting abroad this summer, and at the same time not missing out on a summer of internship opportunities. And I looked a couple other places, London being one of them, and I found that it's really hard to source internships, especially in the field that I'm looking to go into, because of the visa authorization required, especially for sophomores. Then few companies are inclined to offer a paid internship and source your visa for you as a sophomore. But I found this program through Global Initiatives, and they did a lot of the legwork for me. It was very cool. They helped get the internship. They authorized the visa. They set up all of the interviews. There was only one interview, but it was really convenient going through them, and I highly recommend it. It was a great process. In terms of the cost, Hong Kong is a very expensive city. Housing is crazy expensive there, but it helped a lot. I had a substantial scholarship, which covered a lot of the costs and made this program realistic for me. I was saving up for a few years before that, because I anticipated doing an unpaid internship for at least a summer. And between the two, I was able to save up enough money to take a week after the program and travel to Japan, which was a really cool experience. I flew over there with really no plans and a week-long train pass, and traveled from Osaka to Kyoto to Tokyo and back, and it was really phenomenal. I had a great time there as well. It was a great way to end my trip over there. So I guess in the end, what I wanted to accomplish this summer was confirming that I enjoyed living in a city. I'm from West Bloomfield, Michigan, about 45 minutes away. It's not very city-like. I've never lived in a city, and I think I definitely accomplished that. I love living in a city, and I look forward to this next summer, perhaps New York, Chicago, or even London. And on top of that, it was really great to confirm my career path, that I do want to go into finance, and specifically asset management, is I think the field that I would like to pursue in the future. I'd highly recommend this program. The Global Initiatives Department does a really great job handling a lot of the aspects, from setting up housing to getting in touch and helping to source an internship to anything you may need while over there. You could get back in contact. And it was a really great experience. So I think we're doing questions.
Wow, we've heard a lot of information, kind of information overload. There's one clarification I wanted to make about Cultural Vistas, because you heard that name bandied around a lot with Germany and Spain. And, Cultural Vistas is a preferred placement company of U of M. We've worked with them for many, many years. You can go through them as an individual. You can look them up online and go through their website, but we have a partnership with them, so you save a little bit of money if you come through us, and then also you're part of the U of M cohort. So basically, if you want to go to Germany through Cultural Vistas, you go through the German department. If you want to go to Spain or Chile or Ecuador, you go through the LSA International Internship Program. So I hope that's clear. I didn't mention anything about credit. Also, the guys that went to Spain and France both got 3 U of M credits, so that's a possibility. And if you don't speak a foreign language or go to one of the other internship locations, you can also get UC credit as a class, UC 225, which is a 1-credit internship class. So there's those options, and sometimes parents like to hear that you're getting credit, right? And then one last thing I want to mention is not a summer opportunity. It's this coming spring break. I'm going to be leading a group with some other people to Merida in Mexico. It's an alternative spring break. It's a volunteer opportunity. We're going to be living with Mexican families. We're going to be volunteering with them, working in local food distribution center, and working with painting and building houses. And we're also going to be meeting local politicians and really kind of learn about the deep politics of Mexico. There's a flyer outside on the table out there if you're interested in doing that over spring break. So we're going to have some questions in a minute, but please take a moment to thank all of our fantastic panelists. So let's have some questions. You can come down to the microphones if you like, or you can just raise your hand and I'll repeat your question. If there are any questions? Questions, yes, in the front here. So the question was, if you're going on an international internship, does it have to be a Michigan program to apply for funding? And the answer is no. It depends on the funding source, but I think for the majority of, I'm not sure about Ross.
If you're a Ross student, then it doesn't matter. There's a Global Experience Award that you can apply for. If you're a non-Ross student and you're going on a Global Initiatives program, some of those you can apply for funding for.
Yeah, so not necessarily. Yep.
Are all the internships in the Global Initiatives not get internships, or there's some people that get based on where they like.
Everybody hear the question? The question was, are the Ross internships all paid or?
Are they all paid or unpaid? Yeah. So the Ross program are, like many international internships, are unpaid. So I think it's probably more common than not for an international summer internship to be unpaid. It's not unheard of to be paid, but it's more typical to be unpaid.
Yes, question there?
Is it only possible to receive funding if you are on financial aid?
So the question was, is it only possible to receive funding if you're on financial aid? And the answer to that is definitely no. I know it's certainly the merit-based scholarships for Ross. The LSA scholarships are for students on financial aid, but I think that might be the only one, and everything else is merit-based. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Bill?
Right, there are many of the scholarship sources, particularly for internships and research abroad, which are not need-based. So that session on funding on October 1st will feature about a dozen offices that offer funding, and nearly all of them are not need-based.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, money should not be the thing that stops you doing this. There are so many places you can get funding, and if you work hard enough, you can get your entire experience funded. Another question?
Just want to make just a quick note about funding. To reiterate what Rachel said, I have seen students cobble together funding from 5 or 6 different sources in order to make it through the summer. So I wouldn't, especially since the application cycles for a lot of our programs and actually for the State Department is really early. It's November 17th, I think, for the State Department. Ours is December 1st and others. You know, you might be thinking, well, I'm dead in the water. I have no money right now. I can't do this. Well, you'd be surprised what can happen between now and, say, May 15th when you need to take off for your internship. So if you're interested, throw your hat in the ring. And, you know, then you can look for funding sources in the interim.
Right. In fact, the order of getting things is to get your internship or research opportunity in place first, and then look for money. Because in order to be competitive when you apply for funding, you have to have your internship already arranged. So, you know, if you try to look for money first, you won't have any luck.
True, yes. Thank you.
Are the applications for all of these programs online? And if so, at what point basically do you need to commit to whatever program or internship that you need to be on?
I'll just repeat the question. You said, are all the applications binding, and at what point do you need to commit? And I think, well, I'll speak to my program first, the LSA International Internship Program. You don't commit until you are offered a position and you're given 1 week to decide if you want it or not. And at that point, then you commit. Other programs?
For cultural visitors, there's an application fee which is refundable with the exception of $100 that is not refundable. So if you were just in the process of a step out, at some point, of course, you will have to purchase a ticket to go abroad, and how you then get rid of that, but it's not binding.
So for the Ross program, there's no application fee, and the application itself isn't binding. You know, you're going through a process, and then basically we make a conditional first offer that you're conditionally accepted to the internship program. And again, there's no fees attached with that. Now, once you confirm after your interview process, then it's binding from that point. Obviously, acts of God, nature, we are empathetic as an institution. We've had students who've literally broken a leg, the day before they're supposed to fly out. And so we take that into consideration. But there are very rare circumstances that happens. Otherwise, then your program fee is binding at that point.
Great. Yes, question over there.
I have a question about MS. If we cannot go to the information session tomorrow, is there another time we can come and ask questions?
Okay, I'll just repeat the question. For the MIISP, if you can't make the information session tomorrow, he would like to know if there's another time to get information.
Yeah, so that's based in the International Center. You can always stop by and see us. We'll also put that session on video. In fact, last year's session is already available online as a video.
And the International Center is in the Student Activities building now. So we used to be in the Union, but now the Student Activities building, like behind the Cube. So
Where you go get your M card.
yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
I just have two quick questions. I was wondering if you knew any like specific programs that were during the spring term?
So you mean early in the summer break? She's asking about timing of the programs. Certainly our program is, in the majority of them are in the spring term. So as soon as you guys get out, May 4th, I think is going to be your first day of work for some of you. I know with the program we have in Turkey, they want you guys as quickly as you possibly can get there. And then what often happens in Europe is that after the 14th of July, everybody goes on vacation until the end of August. So it's not, in some of the European countries, there's not that much going on then. But it depends. If you're going to Peru or the Galapagos, you can go at any point and stay all the way through to the end of August. So it's highly variable. I don't know about Germany. What time do they usually go? When do they usually go to Germany?
Well, they usually leave at the end of May and stay then through. They usually leave at the end of May and stay through early or mid-August, which can be arranged. I mean, for some students who take spring classes here, we have had situations where they could only leave at the end of June and then only did an 8-week internship. So that varies a little bit also, of course, along your schedule.
And the Ross program?
Yeah, the Ross program. And just a note, I need a microphone but in my next life I'm going to be reincarnated with a German accent and a deep voice, so I can enunciate through all of Blau. But our program starts in May and then runs through early July.
Did we answer both your questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more question. I don't know if someone can sort of talk about the logistics of having a visa during these internships, how that all works.
I think which country specifically? She's asking a visa question.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, probably Europe or Asia.
Well, it depends on your citizenship, of course. Are you a U.S. citizen? For U.S. citizens, it's a fairly easy process, except for if you go to the U.K. For some reason, it's a highly complicated and expensive process, but we help you through that. But usually, it's not an issue getting visas. The places that we go. I mean, India, you need a visa, but it's not very complicated to get one. I mean, oftentimes, because you're not being paid, it means you're volunteering, so you don't need a work visa.
If I could add to that, you do, in most cases, need some kind of special visa if you're going to do an internship. And if you go to a country without that visa, they may put you back on the next plane. We've been talking about internship programs, and one big advantage of those programs is that they arrange for the visa, or at least they help you figure out how to do that. So certainly bear in mind that, whereas as an American you might be able to go to Europe or some other countries, tourists, just with your U.S. passport, if you go there to do an internship, will very likely need a special visa.
But for example, in Spain, if you are going to be there for less than 90 days, you don't need one. So it just kind of depends, I would say.
Yeah, it's different by country. We haven't had anybody thrown out or turned around yet that we know of. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. As for Hong Kong, I think Australia was the same. When you first get there and do the 2-week class, you actually fly in on a tourist visa, which is valid for 90 days. And then you actually have to leave the country and then come back in on a work visa. So we went to Macau for a day, which was pretty cool. And then we came back that night and then switched visas. And all of that was handled by the Global Initiatives Program. You do need to fill out an application, but nobody got rejected for it. It's a pretty simple process.